Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. Good morning, everyone. So I'm super excited this morning, okay? Because we have my friend here, Miss Shanekah Polk, okay? Now, before we start talking about her and who she is, because she's amazing, okay? I want you to like, share, comment on this video, okay? I also want you to download the video. I want you to, download it on Spotify, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, download it. Subscribe to the Millionaire Nurse CEO channel on YouTube. We want to get all these messages out about these nurses who are absolutely amazing. We really, really want to ensure that you are getting what you need, because what happens is nurses are amazing and we have these stories. And so I want you to welcome Shanekah. So Shanekah, can you describe to us who you are in your own words?
Well, in my own words, I would describe myself as I would say I'm more of a everyday girl, around the way girl kind of. I grew up in the 90s, so a lot of times I tie myself to 90s hip hop. I'm a nurse, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, sister, best friend, cousin, all of that. I also consider myself to be a survivor, but I don't focus so much on that part. I'm someone who dealt with a lot in the past, and I've overcome quite a bit. And I wear that as my badge of honor now.
Sweet. So now, tell me, we're just going to jump right in, right? Because we had a long conversation about, kind of some of the things that you went through in your earlier life. Now, you said that when you were 11 years old, as young as 11, that you attempted to harm yourself. And so,
yes.
Go ahead.
At 11 years old, that was my first attempt at, am I allowed to say suicide on here? Okay, so that was my first attempt at suicide. And I swallowed, I don't know how many aspirin. I don't even know where I got the idea of suicide from at that age. But things were that bad that I happily took a bunch of aspirin and laid down happy, just knowing that I was not going to wake up, and was very disappointed. So disappointed that I cried when I did wake up.
So now tell me, what are some of the things that led you to that space?
I had an extremely tumultuous relationship with my mother. My mom was a teenage mom. She had me at 14 years old. We did have family support and all of that, but if a kid cannot be intentional in raising another kid, she was a child, so there was a lot of very rocky and there was a lot that went on there. There was sexual abuse that occurred earlier on. My memory starts at 7. However, I'm quite certain that something went on earlier than that. I just don't know what that was. I did demonstrate behaviors earlier than 7. I remember from 7 on. and I was bullied in school. There was a lot going on for me to be 11 years old. And now we know how those types of things affect children. We didn't know that back then.
Mm,
And so for me, that was my way out, to take these pills and leave this realm or die. And that was what I very strongly wanted that at that age.
gotcha. Gotcha. And so the sexual abuse didn't come from your mom, it came from another family member, correct?
It came from another family member. It was not from my mom. My mom had no idea.
Okay. All right. And did you ever try to tell her, or you just
I attempted to once, when I was a teenager. I was about 15 or 16 years old, and I did so in the middle of an argument. I did not elaborate. I don't remember her asking any details, and I don't remember elaborating at all. But I blurted out something about it, but it didn't go any further than that. I didn't actually tell her until I was much older. I want to say I was in my 30s, late 20s or 30s, and married by the time that I actually came out and told her. And she was devastated.
mm.
So yeah, she had no idea that that was going on, or
So
that had gone on. Mhm.
so let me ask you about so did she know that you had taken the aspirin?
No. When I did that, I didn't tell anyone. I'd heard that when people attempted suicide, it was a cry for help, or when they said something verbally about it. Oh, it's just a cry for help. I wasn't crying for help. I wanted to die. So I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone about that until much later in life.
Hmm. This purpose. This purpose. God said
Mhm.
it shall not be. I love it.
Absolutely.
So now at 13, something else happened.
Yes, at 13, I had made nice with a guy, at in the neighborhood. And to this day, I still don't know if he was an adult or if he was a teen. And I was walking home from school, and then this particular day, he walked with me, and I allowed him to come inside of the home. Things got a little hot and heavy for a 13-year-old, and it ended with me being raped. I repeatedly said no. I asked him to stop. I begged him to stop, kind of fought him off. And eventually he did stop and told me that I was playing games. I asked him to leave the house. He refused to leave the house. I was terrified because no one was supposed to be in the home. My mom and my grandparents had strict rules about letting people inside of the house, and I had violated that rule. So I never told anyone about that. So much so that I didn't even remember it until I was doing a lot of journaling a couple of years ago when I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. And it was very cathartic. A lot of stuff came back to me during that time frame, and I remembered it. I was like, oh my God, that actually did happen. And it did happen. I didn't even see him after that. And so he eventually left the house. He didn't leave the house without fussing and all of that stuff, but he did leave, and I didn't see him again after that.
So he didn't like go to school with you or anything?
No, he was from the neighborhood.
Okay.
I was coming from school, so I went to a Catholic school, and in my neighborhood, not many of us went to Catholic schools, and so he was a guy that hung around that I saw pretty frequently, pretty much every day because he worked at a store that I would stop at, and I thought that he was a teenager, but at 13, I didn't know to ask questions. I didn't know that it was unsafe for him. I didn't understand the severity of letting someone in your home that I barely knew. I thought I knew him. I saw him every day. I talked to him every day. We laughed, chuckled, giggled, stuff like that. So I thought it was okay, but it wasn't.
So
Hmm.
now you eventually, so tell me, what age did you become a nurse?
I became a nurse. I want to say it was 30. I've been a nurse for 50, so 31. I've been a nurse for 15 years now. Yes, I'm 46.
So what did you kind of do in between, once you graduated high school, and what were some of the things that you did in between there, like job wise?
So I graduated high school a year early in attempts to get away from my mom. So the relationship between my mom and I motivated me to get out of school early, and I ran away to college. That was my first attempt at nursing. It was unsuccessful. I ended up quitting in my last semester. However, I did go back to school and finish the bachelor's degree, and I worked in business. I worked at a couple of, I worked as a loan underwriter at one point. I worked in the insurance industry. And then there was an event that went on. Someone in my family was born with some medical conditions, and we were taking shifts at the hospital with her. And it reignited my passion for nursing. So I immediately went back, took all of the prerequisites right away, and enrolled in nursing school.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about you enrolled in nursing school. So when you
Mhm.
quit the first time, why did you quit? Did you?
Well, um, I had been in school for 8 years nonstop. I went to, in order for me to graduate early from high school, I had to attend summer school. So I went to school all year round through high school. That was 3 years. And then I didn't want to come home during summer breaks in college. So I had to go to school during that time as well, during the summer. So I went to school all year round for 8 years straight. And what I believe is that I was already exhausted. And it took a teacher telling me the words that you'll never make a good nurse. You need to really go and look into something else. She was not able to explain to me why I would not make a good nurse. She did not give me any details of that. And I was very fragile already. So that was the straw that broke the horse's back or camel's back. And I quit. I quit. I packed my things up and I moved back to Chicago.
Mm, mm. It's interesting to me how, I can't tell you the number of stories that I've heard like that where
Hmm.
instructors say things like that. And I'm just really, really glad that you went back and you were able to go back to school. You had that resilience behind you to go back to school. Now so how you were overweight, correct? So you were.
Overweight, yes.
Yes. For how many years were you overweight? Like how much did you
Uh,
weigh?
Um, well, going by the standard scale, I've always been overweight. I'm a black woman. I'm pretty shapely, and that started very, very young. So I was always bigger than my peers, but I was not fat. I don't think I became obese until until around the time I was in college. I think that I began eating as a comfort,
Mm.
you know, and it just grew and it did get out of control. At my peak I was about three, well, I stopped getting on the scale at 330 pounds. So I don't know what my highest weight actually was, but I stopped weighing myself at 330.
Now, it was comfort, and so it was comfort from what do you think?
Pain. It was all of the things that had gone on in the past had not been processed. I had gone to therapy at 15 years old. I ran away from home and stayed gone for some months. And the ultimatum. So in order for me to come home, I did give my mom an ultimatum, and that was that we needed to go to therapy. And so I did come home. So I started therapy at 15 years old, but it wasn't very therapeutic. It was enough to keep me alive. I would say that. The therapist was kind and all of those things, but I don't think that I related with her at all.
Why?
I'm sorry.
Why not? Why didn't you relate to it?
I honestly, I can say I found that representation actually does matter. I didn't know that until recently, until people started saying about how much representation matters. All of my, and no offense towards any other ethnicity, but up until 2018, all of my therapists have been Caucasian women. And I think that the things that I had gone through were unrelatable, um, to an extent. Um, and so it wasn't very therapeutic for me. And so I found comfort in food. That was when I found comfort in food. I found comfort in drinking, and I found comfort in smoking marijuana. Those were my staples right there.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. And so the drinking and the smoking of the marijuana and the food, it all just catapulted. So so when did you go back to school? What age did you go? You say you went back to school and you became a nurse at 31, correct?
I graduated at 31. I want to say I went back around 29. Yes.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about, there were some other things that happened after then too.
Yes. Um, after nursing school, after everything is established, my marriage ended, and I was out here dating, and I was sexually assaulted by someone that I considered to be a friend. I was actually sodomized, and so there. I want to be clear when I say it wasn't like a brutal type of thing that went on. We were, in fact, doing some things. We
Right.
were kissing and all of that, but that was never invited, that was never discussed, and that was never wanted. And so, and when he did it, he gave me a look like, what do you mean? I'm screaming and now I'm crying at this point, and he looked at me like I was crazy. like like what had he done wrong? And
Mm.
so, but however he looked at it, it was in fact sodomy because it was unwelcome.
Lord have mercy. And so how did that end? Like, how did you, what happened after that?
After that, he left. And the self-talk that I used to give myself was as such that the the view was so distorted that I continued to refer to him as my friend. And I also continued to speak to him. That was never discussed again. It was never discussed. And I continued to move forward like nothing had happened. It wasn't until a few years ago that I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, that was a violation of your body. It was once I started all of the healing work and the processing and the journaling and the meditation that I realized the number of things that had actually taken place in my life, and it brought razor laser focus to it, and I had to start the healing process. And that was one of the things, like, that's not your friend, and I still, I wouldn't, my friend so and so. Well, my friend so and so said, and this was someone who had severely violated me.
So now tell me a little bit about, because you started to turn around after
Mhm.
all these things. So right around what age would you say that you started to turn things around?
I don't know the age, but I know the year. Things started to turn around for me around 2012. I was around 32, 33, something like that. I was actually introduced to the law of attraction. I was introduced to the film The Secret. Two different people had told me to watch this film. And actually, the guy who had violated me was the first one who said it.
Wow.
Right. Exactly.
Good
I
for
think that was part of, right. I think that was part of the reason that I considered him to be a friend, but that's neither here nor there. Um, that was my first introduction to the law of attraction, and I started putting some of the practices that I saw in that film in place in my life, and I started seeing things change. Um, I was severely depressed and had been depressed for many, many years. I don't think that I ever came out of it. I had gone through an entire marriage with severe depression. I remember looking at my old journals and seeing tear streaks in the writing and stuff like that. So there had been sadness and depression the bulk of my life. But the law of attraction was one of the things that opened me up to alternative healing modalities. I'll say that. In the film, there was a guy who was using, he was meditating. And so that was my introduction to meditation. He was doing like a guided meditation. So I created some guided meditations for myself to follow, and it started working.
it.
And I started seeing changes occur in my life. Yes. In my way of thinking, everything.
It's interesting to me because one of the things, and I was actually having a conversation because we have a book club and having a conversation about meditation and how people, law of attraction and things of that nature, and how sometimes, especially within the Christian faith, sometimes what happens is people struggle with that whole, what does that look like, right? And
Mm,
the reality is that. When you start to put those practices in place, right? It
mhm,
really, really changes. And a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it, right? I am definitely guilty of it because I thought, that's just kind of, I don't, it doesn't work. Okay. I don't know. And so I didn't think that it worked until I
mhm,
actually put it into practice. And
mhm,
it seems like it's so simple, but it is
mhm.
so effective. It
Is
is
extremely effective.
effective. And I was just on a call actually with one a potential client, and one of the things that she said was, I told her, some things to do, and I said, this is one of the things that I want you to do, and I want you to promise me that you will do these things, because when you do these things, your life will look exponentially different 10 years from now. Your life will look
Hmm.
exponentially different 1 year from now. And so,
Absolutely.
it's literally the way that you can change your life. So you started meditating. Now,
Mhm.
what are some of the other things that you started to do in order to change?
I've done quite a few things. One of the things that I did was I started traveling.
Mm.
I got away. My granddad made sure to let me know that no matter where you run, you're not going to run from you. You're going to be there wherever you go. So it doesn't matter if you go to Japan, you're going to be there. So either way it goes, you're going to have to deal with that sugar honey iced tea you got going on. You have to. And so traveling was one of the things because it opened me up to different cultures, different environments, what it was that was out here in the world. I do something called floating. That's one of the healing modalities. There is something called float studios, and you can go in and you float, and that's a way that I meditate as well. One of the major things, one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had occurred after I did something called a Vipassana meditation retreat. It was a 10-day retreat where I was unplugged, no TV, radio, cell phones, writing, talking, no talking for 10 days. In fact, you're supposed to act as if you're the only one there. So if you're going through a door and someone's behind you, you can't even hold the door for them. So you're alone with your mind, with just your mind for 10 days. And I think that that was a pivotal thing. The other thing that was pivotal was that I got a Black female therapist. And it was extremely different than any of the therapy I had had. I'd been in and out of therapy for 15 years, for 30 years. I could recognize when I needed therapy, when I would start to spiral. And so I would put myself in therapy, but this time it was very, very different. And uh, things really started to change. I journaled, I practiced gratitude. And when you're focusing on gratitude, it's pretty challenging to focus on all of the things that you think are going wrong. And so focusing on that gratitude, journaling, and then reflecting on how far I've come, that's all of those things combined were pivotal in turning. But the biggest thing I would say that changed everything was the pandemic. In 2020, while the world was falling apart and we were all locked in the house, I was stepping out of the depression. I was coming out of a 30-year long depression. And so being surrounded, see, I actually like my family. We like each other. I know during the pandemic, a lot of people found out that they didn't like their spouse, they didn't like their kids, but I found out just how much in love with my family I am because we were locked in the house for a year, pretty much. And I was just happy as could be. I'm pretty sure I got on everyone's nerves, but I was in everyone's face. We were going to play games. We were going to have competitions. We were going to laugh. We were going to have fun because we were forced to sit down. And sitting down was the best thing that happened to me in combination with the other modalities that I had at my disposal, the other tools that were at my disposal. it benefited me well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so you, that is interesting that you did that. One of the things that I think is interesting too is how you, when you describe, and it's important, we talked about the fact that you had a Black therapist because you have to believe in the fact that that person can help you. And if you don't
Right.
believe, it really doesn't matter whether they're white, black, or indifferent, right? It is not
Absolutely.
going to work. And so I'm just, you know, I'm incredibly thankful that she was there for you,
So am
because
I.
you you just blossomed into this person who has been just absolutely amazing. Now, how did you lose the weight? Because you ain't no 330 pounds now.
I am not. I actually had the one of the surgeries. Actually, I did two of the procedures. The first procedure that I did was the lap band.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, it was deemed unsuccessful, and so actually it wasn't unsuccessful. That's a whole another story. They did some things incorrectly,
Oh,
and so that stopped me from losing the weight. I did the Ruin Y, and it was in I did not want to do either of the procedures initially. I was convinced that I could do it with diet and exercise alone, and I had been attempting to do so for many years. And it took my doctor sitting me down. I went in to tell her about something else that I was going to try, and she actually sat me down and had a long discussion and pulled out my file and said, "You've tried all of this. Will you consider doing the surgery?" And I was like, whoa. She went down the list of things that I had done, the things that I had been really consistent about that she was involved in, and all of that. And I wasn't getting much success, at least not fast enough by my standards. And I went on and I did it. But even with that, what people don't tell you is that you gain the weight back. If you don't address your stuff, you're going to gain the weight back. And I gained the weight back.
uh-huh.
So, but the way that I'm keeping it off now is that at some point I became vegetarian. I did begin a wellness journey in terms of eating the foods that I eat. And there was a whole event that occurred with that. I fell asleep on the train with my goddaughter, who was about 5 or 6 at the time. And I fell all the way asleep. Exactly. We missed our stop. Woke me up when we got to the end of the line. At that time, I was living off of Black and Mild cigars, McDonald's French fries, and coffee. And so it freaked me out enough that I was like, okay, wait a minute. And I'd watched a film called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, where the guy was juicing.
Uh-huh.
And so I attempted that, and it started kind of put me on the path to a wellness journey for my body.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
And I've been on that since.
I love that. That's one of the movies that I watched too, because
Mhm.
it was really, really good how he just, like, all of his disease, well, the disease process that he
Yes,
had, it just left. Like, and I tell people
absolutely.
I tell people this all the time. It is within your diet. If you can get your diet under control, then a lot of things that are happening within your body can be healed. Even down to your, mental stability, right? And the ability
Absolutely.
to be able to move and to do the things that you need to do. And so that is really, really good. And so I'm incredibly thankful that you were able to get out of all of that. So what are some things that you suggest to people who are depressed? Because there are some nurses, and not just nurses, right? There's some other people who are depressed. What are some things that you suggest that they do?
I would suggest getting a professional involved. So go to therapy. It's okay for you to go to therapy. Find and just because one therapist doesn't, you don't strike a rapport with that person, it doesn't mean that you won't strike a rapport with any therapist. Now you can read their bios. Now you can read all of this stuff about them prior to even scheduling your appointment. So I would say seek therapy. I would say look at some of the alternative healing modalities, such as meditation, such as energy work, like Reiki, things like that. There's
What is
hmm?
Reiki? What is Reiki?
Reiki is, have you heard of like chakras and auras and all of that stuff? Okay, so we have energy. We know that we're electric. So think about it. If someone's heart stopped, you have to electrocute them to get it started back, right? You
Mhm.
have to flip that. It's like you're flipping a breaker switch with the electricity, right? You have to get the electricity going back through them. So we have over 7,000 chakras in our body.
Mhm.
Chakras is something that's talked about frequently, like in Asian medicine.
Okay.
So I've done acupuncture. I've done, I believe that it's pronounced Tinwa, which is a form of massage that's done in the Asian community that's popularized by them. Um, so you can really you hold energy in your chakras. There's like seven dominant chakras that run up your spine, with the base one being your sacral chakra, and that's where our survival instincts are at. So if you're living in survival mode, which most of us are,
Mhm.
many of us are, you hold a lot of trauma there, so you can do energy work to release that trauma. I would recommend journaling. Journaling can be very, very cathartic. And then it relieves a lot, especially when you have a chance to look back and see how you used to think versus where you're at now, where you used to be versus where you are now. Um, so there's a lot of healing that occurs in that. I say when I say the therapy, it's because we need to speak about it. Whatever it is for you, get it out of you. Talk about it. One of the reasons that so many of us drink and smoke and do all of these different things is because we're holding all of that trauma inside of us. And what we know about trauma now is that it literally impacts our genes. So, our DNA. So, if you've experienced a traumatic event, there is a physical change that occurs in your DNA.
Mm.
Yes. So, and then there's a whole field of study called epigenetics, in which they study the genes and how we pass our genes down from person to person. Now, remember, you know how it's rumored that we have people of African American descent have a tendency to have a difficult time losing weight. So it not even just us. If your culture or your people have experienced something like famine or drought or gone extensive time periods without food, epigenetics says that you're going to hold on to that weight, because if you're not eating, your body thinks that you may be starved, right? You're being starved. So it's going to hold on to that weight for as long as it can, and then once it knows, um, then it will start to release the weight when it has no choice. But typically, when we first start trying to lose weight and we have those struggles, especially in the Black community, it's because of our history. Of the history of our ancestors. So stuff like us being starved, we were on plantations, food was not readily available to us. So we pass those type of genes get passed down from generation to generation. And what's been found, like the Ivy League schools have done research, and they found that the way to heal your DNA or reverse the issues with your DNA and trauma is to do affirmations out loud 3 times a day. Something so simple can help. Right. It's always, I would say it's unbelievable, but I don't label anything as being unbelievable these days. But it heals. And so if it can heal something, if it can heal your DNA, then you can heal that trauma that's in you. And some of the trauma, some of the pain that we experience isn't even ours. I mean, we're the African Americans are the only people in history to have gone through chattel slavery. And with that chattel slavery, there's a lot of trauma that went there that got passed down. At the same time, there's a lot of resilience and strength. I mean, we're still walking around. We're pretty much an indestructible people. No
Right.
matter what's thrown at us, we're able to walk through it and survive it. Now, we may be a little crooked when we come out of it, but nevertheless, we survive it. And so epigenetics has, we got both sides of that coin though. We got the trauma that was passed down, and we also got the resilience, but we have the power to heal that trauma.
I love it. I love it. I love how you have researched that and you understand that because, at the end of the day, sometimes we don't understand the reasons why we are the way that we are, right?
Right.
We don't
Right.
understand the reasons why things happen the way that they do and the reason why we respond in the way in which we do. And so I'm incredibly, thankful for what you are doing and the work that you're doing. So you have a company and you are helping people who have dealt with trauma. And so tell me a little bit about that.
So the name of the company is the Infinite Healing Well. I am the CEO and creator of the Infinite Healing Well. And what we do is help people begin their healing journey. I use neuro-linguistic programming, which is a fancy way of saying affirmations. So I do customized affirmations. We do something called quantum healing hypnosis technique. If the client is open to that, pretty soon we'll be offering Reiki. And so alternative healing modalities. Although I'm a nurse practitioner, I've kind of veered away from Western medicine because it is helpful. Every form of healing has its place. It didn't help me very much though. These are the practices that I found to be very instrumental in my healing. And so those are the practices that I'm offering.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. And I think that that's, valid because, we see it all the time in the hospital, right? We see it all the time where medicines are just thrown at the people. And
Absolutely.
they're not healing from the medications that are being thrown at them. So how can people find you? What can they do in order to find you?
I am on Facebook as Shanekah Polk.
Okay.
And that's spelled Shanekah, and my last name is Polk, Polk. I also have a Facebook page for the Infinite Healing Well. We're adding more stuff to that page to get that up and running. I'm also on Instagram as the Infinite Healing Well, and I have another page on TikTok. That's my personal page. If you want kicks and giggles, I have that as well. That's Infinite Wisdom _17.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So y'all go and follow her now on
Mhm.
Instagram and on Facebook for sure, for sure. So thank you. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for healing so that you can help other people. I think one of the things that we have, now that I think I know, when you look at your life and when you know that you are going through what you're going through so that you can help the next person, it's game changing. It's
It
game
is.
behavior.
I didn't know that for a long time, and it's been in recent years that I know that it had to be me because it stops with me.
Hmm.
All of that. Oh, sorry about that. All of that, it stops with me. It's
Hmm.
done. And so I am the black sheep of my family. I'm the weirdo of the family. I do weird stuff like float and meditate, but I'm also healing. We're healing. We're breaking the generational trauma and those time breaking generational curses is what we're doing.
Well, I mean, I think that it's weird when you've never been exposed to it, right?
Right.
And I've
I
been
agree.
I've been exposed to meditation. I've been exposed to, floating. So it's not anything that's weird to me, right? And so,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
yes, it can be weird when it's something, but I mean, just the people need to just try it, right? But
Right.
understanding that,
Absolutely.
I think that, we really want to expound on the fact that when you go through things, the goal is for you to get through it. When you get through it, your goal is
Hmm.
to help somebody else through their stuff and understanding
Absolutely.
that the reason why God is putting you through things that and not God really, because at the end of the day, it's another power at hand. But the reality is that he's omnipresent, and because he's omnipresent, he has to allow it to he has to allow it to happen. And when he
Mm.
allows it to happen, what you have to understand is that he understands who you are. He built you.
Mm,
He grew you, right? And so
mm,
because he grew you, he understands that it's not that, because people say, well, God won't put on more on you than you can handle. And I don't think that that's necessarily the truth. I think God won't put anything on you that you can't handle with him. I think
mm.
that's the truth. And so
Okay.
that's where things really, really change and where it evolves. And so thank you for being here and for sharing your journey, such a personal journey, but a journey where people who have been through the things that you have been through, because you have to be able to relate to the people in which are helping you. And so I'm incredibly grateful for you. And so I ask everybody, so again, like, share, comment, download the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, because we really, really want to get these messages out of how these nurses are really transforming the industry and how we are transforming healthcare, so that we can make things better. So outside of that, you ladies and gentlemen, you have an amazing rest of your day. You know what? I got something else, because normally what I do is I do these rapid fire questions. Okay.
Oh,
And so
okay.
this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with these rapid fire questions for you. All right. So
Okay.
tell me, what has been the most rewarding thing about nursing?
What has been the most rewarding thing about nursing? Oh, the flexibility in caring for the patients, having someone to care for.
Okay. All right.
That was been extremely beneficial during that depression.
Sweet. Okay. Okay. Now, what are some common misconceptions about nursing?
That is easy, and nurses just pass medications.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Hallelujah. Now, what are you reading now?
Ooh. I'm reading right now. I'm reading Seth Speaks and the Kabbalion.
It's called what now?
There's a book called Seth Speaks
Uh-huh.
by, I believe it's by Jane Roberts.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm also reading The Kabbalion by the Three Initiates.
Okay. Okay. Now, who is a leader, living or dead, that you would like to have a conversation with?
A leader, living or dead, that I would like to have a conversation with. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say, what's coming to mind. Actually, I'm going to say Tupac.
Tupac. Okay.
Yes, that was the first person that came to mind. I always wanted to have a conversation with him.
Okay. And tell me why you wanted to have a conversation with him.
I wanted to, so I always wanted to get his insight on the different things that were going on in our community and have a discussion. So I only heard his stuff it was one directional. So I heard his music and I followed his music and I watched the interviews, but I never got to ask the type of questions that I probably would have liked to ask. The interviewers never really expounded on the details about what he had going on in his music. Whereas when in college, I wrote a paper on his music. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So now, what is your favorite movie?
Brown Sugar.
Okay. Now, how do you define success?
I define success as being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want.
Come on now. I love it. Now, what is your life's motto?
What is my what is my life's motto? Does it have to be plain?
I mean,
okay.
Go
I'm just saying. Okay, no. I'm going to say that my life's motto is, you said go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
My motto is no bitch assness. Just do it. Go ahead and do it. We're not going to cry about it. We're not going to whine about it. We're not going to be a crybaby. Just go ahead and do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now that I can get with. So I love I so love all of that. So you, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a great rest of your day. Listen, go find Shanekah, okay? All right. You tell me
Yes, ma'am.
Shanekah because she can truly, truly help you. She is absolutely amazing. I just found her just to be amazing, an amazing individual. And I don't recommend people who I don't think that are amazing. So I recommend that if you've had some trauma to go
Thank
see
you.
her out. So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a great rest of your day.